This is Thriving Chiropractors, where chiropractors supporting chiropractors and talking to chiropractors that are thriving beyond the four walls of their practice.
This is Dr. Austin Cohen with Thriving Chiros, which is sponsored by Life Alumni Association. And we just want to say thank you to everybody from season 1. We got such great feedback from everyone. And the comments, just keep sending those in and keep sending the topics you want to hear more about. And what's great is now we're on season 2, and the theme for season 2 is live from LVE. And what's great about that is we just get people who are not from Atlanta, from all over the US. Actually, after today, we are a worldwide podcast based on Fresh from China. But I'm excited today because we've got actually a good buddy of mine, very successful chiropractor. And just what I like is, I don't like just saying good chiropractor or great chiropractor, it's like good person. And that's one thing I like about Dr. Joe. So Dr. Joe Esposito, all the way from Illinois, welcome.
Awesome.
Dude, good having you.
Yeah, thank you.
It's great. And so, one thing I love about you is you're kind of similar shoes to where I am. Obviously, you've been doing it longer than I have, and I always look up to you as kind of a mentor. And you're in the multi-unit game, right? And you got, how many clinics do y'all have now through the franchise?
Just about 40.
When did you decide, was this while you were in chiropractic school, when you graduated, had one practice? When did you decide, I want more locations?
I guess right in school, I had a desire to make bigger impacts. So I always was thinking about multiples. I don't know why, but it was just, I felt that was the way for me to get the voice and the message out bigger. And like we were talking before we started, is that the right answer all the time? No, you have to really get deep into the risk, benefit, reward of doing that, right?
And so you decide that in your school you want to go this multi-unit route. And you end up going, where did you end up graduating, moving towards? Where did you move actually when you graduated?
I stayed in Georgia, and then I moved to Illinois, and that's where I started.
Okay. And then how long did it take for you to kind of get that second location going?
I worked for 1 year as an independent contractor, and then I opened my first clinic.
Got it.
And literally 9 months in, I had 2 associates. I did independent contractors.
Okay.
And I did a revenue split with them. They covered my overhead. I used that money to open my second one 9 months later. So it was a leveraged opportunity where I did heavy marketing, heavy operations right off the bat, brought in doctors that wanted to leverage that right in the way, which covered overhead and let me leverage the second one.
Your mindset, though, is okay, where did this come from, right? Because most chiropractors when they graduate, it's a poverty mindset, right? They're thinking, I'm not ready to hire an associate yet. And they wait to think there's this perfect moment where I always say, hire before you're ready. And you probably have similar philosophies as what I have in business as well. But how did you get this mindset though, of prosperity consciousness of, I'm just going to bring in people, we're going to revenue share, but I know by leveraging them that we can grow.
I don't know. I always had bigger dreams. I always was bigger than myself. My clinics were never, my name was never about me. I really, it's cliched, but I just had such a desire to tell the truth. I was so frustrated about real healthcare. I was like a little kid in a candy store learning what we learned about the chiropractic philosophy. I was running to my office every day, excited about the mission.
What got you frustrated though? Was there a story you have when you were younger with family?
It was my father who got a med that I was in the hospital. They were about to inject him, and I said, hold off. Talked to my sister. She was at home. I said, do some research on this drug. And they said, well, it's risky on the kidney, this and that. I ran back to the room. They injected him. And within a minute, he died right there on the spot. Within a minute of the injection. And I was like, wow. So watching your dad suffocate, it's a little bit of a dark story. But the other side of that was the drugs use was just they needed iodine. Naturally is all they needed. But they use a synthetic form because they want to patent it and make money. So it opened my eyes to saying, wow, nutrition and chiropractic play such a good role. So that anger turned into opportunity of me gaining peace in my journey by solving this problem.
But to you, it's also, how old were you when your father passed away?
Late 20s, mid 20s.
You probably, I would assume that is what keeps you going though, right? It's that story. That is a why, right? A purpose, a driven. I always tell my docs, for example, I was if I kidnapped your kids right now and told you need to figure out a way to get $20,000 in revenue this month, how long would it take you to get that? And I'll give you your kids back when you hit that. I'll do it tomorrow. Yes, because this thing is so valuable to you, and this is a why and a purpose. It's so how do you get into that state without having a serious thing? It's as chiropractors, how do we get to that state of knowing our healthcare system right now is a huge problem without unfortunately having to go through father passing away? This is crazy.
Yeah, I think you're right. The bigger your purpose is, the less things hassle you, the less frustration occurs, less anxiety you have, because your purpose is bigger than yourself. Once you get so into your ego and you got to substantiate, validate your own thoughts and your own emotional state, it gets harder, it gets confusing. So I think that helped me is my mission was always so big. And I turned the anger of that family relation to inspiration of helping others. And my big dream was the medical doctor that I was telling my dad that he had these issues, and he would say, the doctor said, well, ask your son if he knows what size the heart's on, because he knew I was in the chiropractic world. Well, last year, I got nutrition integrated into a hospital. Right in all the departments, they had me lining up to speak to 300 MDs on how to use nutrition versus meds. So that was like...
Was this the hospital that your father was in? Or
no, it wasn't,
okay.
But it was still such a bricks off my back of knowing you made some impact to the loss of your family.
My uncle committed suicide because when he was young and 18 years old, he got into a fight in a bar with a professional boxer. Which, by the way, if you're a professional boxer, your hands are considered lethal weapons. So it's actually illegal to get into a fight.
Oh, yeah.
And so he did, and he fractured the spine. So my uncle ends up getting surgery on his spine, and what ends up happening as time would go on is just dealt with a significant amount of back pain, degenerative disc, cortisone shot, all this. And it just got to a point where he couldn't deal with the pain anymore. He ended up taking his own life at his mother's house, who was my grandmother. And that drives me every single day too. Like similar to what you're saying is, to have orthopedic surgeons referring to our office now and to have meetings with, neurosurgeons, and it is like, I can like feel the emotion of it, right? Of like kind of when you're sharing this, and to see what you've done, by the way, is so amazing, of course, for this profession. I mean, it's just, you're doing some great things. So
thank you.
And you kind of get to the second location, right? When you decided like, all right, now let's go bigger, let's get 3 and then 4 and then 5 and now we're 40. Like how does this like journey happen?
Yeah, so I did the second one in a gym, and then the third one in a standalone. And I was just looking to break revenue to a small amount, like 15-20% profit, and I'm ready to go, and I'm going to clean up. One thing I tell you, not a regret, but a clarity is really stabilize, and you're going through this as I have, and I still do, is make sure we stabilize and then mitigate risk. Because the bigger you get, it's not just about growth. It's about mitigating risk, reducing variables that can cause conflict inside the business. So I'm always trying to simplify and mitigate risk and reduce variables. How do I take one variable out? It's huge when you're going to scale, right?
Yeah, it's interesting in this profession. If you're just studying chiropractors, right, I think where you could go wrong is the KPIs they study. They're looking at weekly volume, which really means nothing in the grand scheme of things. Because to some clinics, the patient's worth like $20. To some, it could be worth over $100, right? So obviously volume is really not a significant number. And then, I think you and I were just talking about this earlier. It's like, now the question I get is not so much about what my volume is, now it's more so, hey, how many clinics you got? And you can get in your head of like, wait, do I need more clinics? Because that's a problem mindset to have, right? I need to be looking at like profit and profit margins and like my overhead and like my retention. It's just like there's so many other variables that would go in KPIs that would go into place on this. I love this stabilization. What are some tools though, or like if we can get a little tactical for a second, right? Was there a time where you looked at your business and you're like, all right, we need to stop for a second? And like when you did stop, what did you focus on? If you could give like a strategy to people listening, like, hey, here's what we did that have helped us.
Great point. So when we converted to a franchise, sold off our corporate clinics, and we started to build a franchise, scaled to about 30-something locations, and we had a hard stop because we were focusing on end-stage lagging stats, income and new patients, but we weren't focused on the behaviors to get there. So we didn't tie what are the behaviors to get to the next level. We were stagnated just on lagging stats, not leading stats, or key performance indicators versus key behavioral indicators that you measure on a weekly or daily basis. We were like, end of month, did we do it? No. Okay, let's rationalize. So we didn't have the right maturity in the way we thought about the numbers and the behaviors attached to them. Once we did that, it really changed the game. And then we looked at leadership. We had some faulty leadership. We had some victimhood. We had more of a family-based business versus a team-based business. So everyone we liked stayed together. There was never any accountability. Now it's a team. If you don't produce, you don't go on the field. We'll train you, we'll help you, but you got to be able to play.
Can you dial in a little bit? I mean, I think chiropractors, obviously, when it comes to understanding stats and metrics, I mean, for them, it's not a common terminology that is thrown around in this profession. Can you share a little bit? I mean, because this has been big for us to understand the difference between like lag indicators and lead indicators for people.
Yeah, sure. So you want to separate your analytics by the behaviors, which is leading. So something that leads to an outcome, and the outcome stats, we call them key performance indicators. How did you perform? Did you get a base hit? Did you get a home run? What did you get? But then what is the behavior to get there? So let's say lead gen, it's like, how many spinal screens have you done? How many talks have you done? That's where you got to focus on, not the outcome. And I think when we force the focus on outcome, we kind of invalidate some of our team. We try to hold them to that without teaching them how to get there. I've been guilty of that, being hard on the end and not a trainer or a coach on the front end.
Yeah, and it's interesting you're talking about becoming more of a team and less of a family. One of our core values when we first started was we are a family. And then what I realized a few years ago was that I said to the team when we reshaped our core values, I said, hey, who here has Thanksgiving with other people in this company? No one raised their hand. And I said, who here has Christmas with anybody in this company? Nobody raised their hand. I said, well, who here has Thanksgiving and Christmas with their families? And everyone raised their hand. I said, okay, we're not a family. We're a team. And we need to identify that. Because if we were a family, we'd be spending Thanksgiving and Christmas together, and we're not. We're spending with our real, like, true families. Now, it doesn't mean, like, we don't need to be close with each other and all of that, right? For sure. But Netflix does the same thing, by the way. If you look at Netflix's core values, they say it, actually, and they're like, we are not a family. They're very, like, identifying others. And I love that you shared that. Do y'all have, I'm assuming y'all have core values in your company, you guys? Yeah. Do you have those, like, off the cuff, or?
Yeah. Exceed expectations is the first thing. In order to do that, you have to set them. Once you set them, then you can practice exceeding them. And too often we don't set them. So in every department, we're always studying what is the expectation. And it's so simple, but we overlook that. The second is people matter. We like the individuality of people. We like the quirkiness of people. We like authenticity. We like people who they are. We build teams around doctors and managers that we see their genius and we build around them. So to us, people matter. We're into personal development, the uniqueness of each human. The third one is impact-driven, is working on the outcome of driving impact, and that's analytical study. And the last one is drawing a blank on my last one. I'll have to come back to that.
No, so it's interesting. I'll tell you ours real quick because they're almost identical. Purpose-powered impact, better together, accept the challenge, set the standard, and fortify ourselves, fortify others. So the more we take care of ourselves, the more we can give back and serve others. But what's interesting is, you do those three like this, right? And so if I study like very successful businesses, the one common theme I see is like core values.
Oh yeah.
And right, like, and they may not know them off the cuff real quick, but they understand the concepts of them, and they're living, breathing things like within their company. They're not just words that are thrown on a wall. Yeah. Maybe you've been there before. Like, I don't know if y'all like did this exercise one time. Like, advancement, exceed, like.
We just combined our 5 into 4, so that's the last one is a combination. But we did that last week because we're like, if you can't own it and you can't think about it and you can't talk to your team about it, you should hire to it, you should fire to it, you should give raises to it, you should reward to it. Yeah. It should be, and that's why we combine, because until it's right there, you can't. So we combined the last two, and I gotta recall that one.
You will. And we're gonna put the Alumni Life Center's core values, by the way, in our show notes. There we go. So we'll be able to see them all in there. What are some books or like podcasts? Like, what are you listening to? Who are you watching right now on Instagram? Like, what are you reading? What podcast? Who's going through your brain right now?
A book called Simple Numbers, Big Profits by Crabtree, which is a great for doctors to look at really as an entrepreneur. The simple concepts to pay yourself first, but really look at labor efficiency of a business as it scales. It's just awesome book. And then some of the one book, 10X versus 2X, is another book that just has a good framework.
10X is easier than 2X. Yeah.
10X is easier than 2X. Oh,
Dan Sullivan, not the chiropractor.
Yeah, Dan Sullivan. The other one, not how, but who.
Yeah.
Great books.
Oh man, those are. It's so fun, man. Every time we do these podcasts, by the way, it's the theme of, you can always measure, I feel like, the level of success, by the way. And I'm not just talking about like money too, by the way, as well, right? I'm talking about like people that are true, like impact. They're also like happy and like they're purpose driven. And you can always tell that by where they are, like some of the answers, right? They know who's going through their brain. They're very intentional about, who's like actually like transforming their mindset.
Yes.
And so, if I were to go, this is a question I always ask like future employees of mine, by the way. This is part of our hiring process. I was asking this question. I asked this on this podcast. If I were to open up your phone right now, look through Safari, or I would look through like your laptop right now, pull up your internet browser. Yeah, like what are some tabs that are open right now that you're looking at?
Probably Monday.com task.
Yes, love Monday.
Projects are. That's probably one. Some nutritional journals that I study all the time. There is my Audible. One of the courses one of the books I'm listening to on branding right now. So those are some of the things that are open.
Well, I think branding probably one of the most undervalued things, by the way, in this profession. We went through a branding exercise about 6 or 7 years ago, and I love the impact of it, by the way. And the first thing we did is we rebranded our logo, which was great. But then we started rebranding all the like everything, like the posters, the pamphlets, everything. We didn't buy anything from anybody. We just made all of our stuff. And now we started branding our own lexicon within the company. Unbelievable. I mean, is this like some of the stuff they talk about in this book?
Oh, yeah. Like branding is a business process. It's not just a logo. And it's like the last book in branding was just phenomenal about how to implement it as like a protocol system. What great brands do is the one that really well written. You're listening to an Audible?
Yeah. Is the author the narrator too?
I believe so.
Okay, because that's like my go-to, by the way, because you can feel the passion in the words. So otherwise, I'm like, I'm okay. All right, this is usually my last question. Where did you graduate from chiropractic school?
Life University.
What year?
96.
All right, so this is my question. If the 2024 version of Joe Esposito is on the other side of the graduation stage, as the 96 Joe Esposito is walking across that stage, what words of wisdom would the 2024 version give to the 1996 version of Joe Esposito? What would he tell him?
Probably saying metrics, not emotions. Because the first 10 years, my passion was intertwined with so much emotion from my father. And not that you don't want to carry that passion, but when it came to the business decisions, I leaned on a lot of emotion and I didn't have expectation on metrics. So that's probably what I learned. I had the passion.
Yeah. And yes, the metrics thing to me is one of like such a missing piece, by the way, in this profession. I mean, these are real businesses. It's not just little day practices. Now, if people want to learn more about you, or do you have like a podcast? Do you have Instagram?
Yeah,
we
have a podcast, Align Your Practice podcast. We have you can check us out on alignlife.com for our national franchise. You could look at our nutrient line that we're integrating. By the way, I got a pack for you.
Yes, I was going to say, I haven't got mine yet. I'm excited.
Aceva.com for the nutrient line. And those who want to attend one of our mission trips, healthmissions.net. We're going to Colombia in March, and we're going to Peru in April. So it's going to be...
Is this new?
Yeah, no, we've been doing it for many years. But there's some...
I feel hurt. I did not know about this, by the way. I'm excited.
You'll come in one of these.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
This is actually something I've been wanting to do.
Really?
Thanks so much for doing this, man. This is awesome. I'm glad this whole LVE thing happened. You were actually speaking on stage just recently, so thanks for coming here after your talk. And this is season 2, live from LVE with Dr. Joe Esposito, 1996 graduate from Life University.
Thank you.